Now we're going to have the first panel of today. It's going to be building the DePIN, key challenges and opportunities. We're going to have here 4 friends of mine. I'd like to bring to the stage Ranvir from Witness Chain, Adrienne from POKT Network, Thomas from Silencio, and Almaris from Koii Networks. I think everyone is here. It's pretty cool because, 2 of those guys are already on the DePIN Hub podcast. While everyone's coming, I'd like to, just tell a little bit about what we are actually building on the space. That we are not necessarily a DePIN project the way everybody thinks. We've been building in the space for the past 4 years, and we're trying to bring, DePIN to the masses with a platform called DePINHub.io. So, yeah, while everybody's coming here, and, well, I already have my mic. Let's get started. I can just put this on the side. Hope you guys are having a good time. Thanks so much for joining. It's always a pleasure to see you guys. Nice to meet you. And yeah, awesome. Well, let's start by maybe you guys introducing yourselves, like really briefly, and what you guys are doing.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ranvir. I'm the co-founder CEO of Witness Chain. We started Witness Chain around 3 years ago with the goal to unify DePIN economies. So what we are building is a trust layer that can help DePINs and applications build on top of DePINs coordinate with one another. The trust layer is powered by consensus on physical states. Just like blockchains apply consensus on digital state, we do the same for physical attributes. Thanks for having me on the panel.
Hi everyone, my name is Thomas and I am one of the co-founders of Silencio. Silencio is a DePIN actually focus on creating one of the largest, if not the largest already, noise level data bank in the world. We did this through a gamified smartphone app-based approach. It's free to join, and thanks to this model, we've been able to scale the app already to be delivering data in over 180 countries every single day. And our DePIN journey actually started about 5 years ago when we first came across Helium. Like many of other people in this room, we were captivated by the idea of being able to not only crowdsource data, but really coordinate human behavior to do good and to create value through this token incentive mechanism. And that was the start of something much bigger. We felt that Helium was really demonstrating what could be possible in the future. And that was what brought us into the space right from the start.
Hi, everyone. I'm Al from Koii, one of the co-founders of Koii, actually. We spent the last 3 years developing a world-changing compute network, but we've actually been in DePIN since about 2015. My first project was a mesh Wi-Fi grid way back then. We've been working on lately is helping founders and developers be able to launch their own token to pay for computing. And this has been really well received by our community. We've now got over 85,000 nodes, which are home PCs that you can tap into with your own token. Because these are retail users, they're actually pretty excited to mine new tokens. And so you can go direct to them with a new token by deploying one of our templates and then actually launch a project with almost no barrier to entry. And we have some amazing crowdfunding updates to come out actually in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned.
Hi, my name's Ads. I'm head of growth at POKT Network. POKT Network is at the kind of deep infra side of DePIN. So we talk about being the universal RPC infra layer, which kind of means that we are laying the fiber optic cables for the open internet. So anytime an application interacts with a blockchain or in future with an AI model, that's enabled by RPC. It's the communication protocol that connects all of that. We've been on a live mainnet for 4 years. We connect over 60 blockchains. We're expanding into AI at the moment. And because we are decentralized, we can deliver that service with unbeatable uptime, so the apps don't fall over, and scalability. So we're able to scale to more data sources more rapidly, cope with peaks in demand, and we can do it more cost effectively.
Thank you. Yeah, one thing that I think is very interesting about this panel is everyone is building DePIN in very different, different angles and different side of things. So thanks for joining. Building a DePIN project has a lot of challenges. It's really hard. Different projects, different angles, different communities. Briefly, what are the difficulties that you guys have on your own ecosystem, and how important is community on those challenges to have a successful DePIN project?
So to answer this question, let me explain a little bit more about what we do. So what our goal is to, if you want to unify DePINs, you want to create a shared trust layer. A trust layer that will work through different verticals across DePINs, right? And a challenge here is to identify what these individual DePINs share, right? They share physical assets, and these physical assets have shared attributes, such as their location, their compute, connectivity, and so on. Once you identified those, you have to build proofs for each of these individual things so that you can verify those in a trustless manner. Now, building these proof of location or proof of bandwidth is a technically challenging task, and that's what we will be building out. We've resolved the technical challenges and built this out. But after doing that, the next challenge comes in, how do you get people to validate these attributes? It's the same bootstrapping problem a lot of blockchains have. And what helped us here is that we were the launch partner AVS to EigenLayer. And through their help, we were able to bootstrap with around $7 billion of restaked ETH in crypto economic security. So once we do that, now DePINs that partner with us automatically have that level of security. And any applications built on top can be built being rest assured that they are secured by a huge billions of dollars worth of ETH. And things can't go wrong.
Sure, I'll go next. I mean, when we look at challenges, more specifically for us founders, I would say that on one side, we need to make sure that the incentives are aligned with what we want to accomplish. So really keeping that end game in mind, what behavior do you want to create? Because people will always look for the path of less resistance. And maybe to give you an anecdote on that matter, back in the British colonial times in India, there was a general that wanted to get rid of venomous cobras in Delhi. So he said that he was going to pay for every single snake that somebody brought to him. And that worked out very, very well at the beginning, but quick enough he started noticing that the snakes, they just became more and more and more. And he noticed that the Indians, being smart as they are, they started breeding them in their basements. And the problem ended up being worse than at the start. So just always keep that in mind when you're building. On the other side, I'll go a bit into the scalability factor of things. Whenever you want to build a DePIN, you want to make sure that it's scalable enough for you to get to that desired outcome where you can find product market fit in any market condition. So you can either go for a dedicated hardware approach or a idle infrastructure approach. Just keep again that long-term game in mind. Ask yourself, how does this all end? For us in Silencio, it was clear that we want to create means for people to contribute data for the next 5 to 10 years as frictionless as possible. So by tapping into idle infrastructure, we knew, okay, the benefits of using a smartphone-based approach meant that we are not the primary reason why people are using this hardware to start off with. We are nice to have on top, right? This means that people are going to keep on improving this hardware as time goes on. It's not going to become obsolete. And we don't suffer, of course, the classical problems associated with dedicated hardware. But this brings a bigger opportunity for the future to leverage whatever new technologies and capabilities those future pieces of hardware would bring with them.
Nice. So the thing you mentioned was community, I think.
Yeah, the challenges you guys have and how important is the community on that?
Yeah, so actually the first DePIN, which people might not be aware of, was LimeWire. At least it's the first one that I used. And that's all about community, right? Because back then it wasn't about money, it wasn't about mining tokens. You didn't need to go worry about how many snakes somebody was going to breed. It was about, can we actually solve this problem that we all have? And so people would actually want to be a seeder on a torrent because that meant you got faster downloads on other torrents. And that works really well as a market-based principle. And so what we're trying to do at Koii is actually to bring this back to the peer-to-peer internet a little bit. And that means that what we try to accomplish is when you build an app on Koii, and we've built a whole bunch of them over the last year, when you build an app on Koii, you're not actually there to try to financialize it initially. You're there to try to inspire the community to give you their computers. And this has actually been fascinating because over the next 6 months, we have a plan to launch about 50 of these protocols on Koii. And we started templating this so that you can build like a web app. We're trying to get to the point where this is as simple as WordPress, which means that hopefully you'll be able to sit down with even no technical skills and click a button and deploy a decentralized application. And then it's all about the community. It's 100% community at that point, because you can get people to harvest a bunch of resources from their peers, get everybody to start using a new token, and then that actually financializes it by the community. And so the community engagement is what creates the financial incentives. And so we actually had a funny project like this in London Hackathon about 2 weeks ago, where somebody deployed Bumbacat. And this was a meme coin on Solana, who are now scraping with 4,000 devices. They're scraping Twitter for hashtag 420, which is a little silly, but it means that now that community has something to do with this meme coin. And that actually creates the value, right? Because now they're not going to sell the meme coin because they're participating in this task, and it gives them a reason to open their Koii node, which is fantastic. So the way that we see this, it's all about the emotional connection that people have to these brands, and that will eventually lead to financialization of these products, but I think it's a little early to start thinking about it in the financial terms right now. Because really it's all about emotion to create growth. And we've seen this when we poll Koii node operators, they tend to be running the Koii node for one specific task that's on the node. And we have the ability to run all kinds of different tasks with different tokens. So they come for one task, and then they stay for everything else. Like you might download one song off LimeWire because you couldn't get it on iTunes or something like that. And so I think the community is actually absolutely critical. So I like that you brought that up.
I'll just add a couple of thoughts. So POKT Network has always been quite ideologically driven as a project. So we are very decentralized. We have decentralized governance. I work for a DAO. We have decentralized supply. We have now decentralized access. So community has always been core. Most of our recent major protocol upgrades have been built by the community. Most of the tooling that makes it easier to interact with POKT Network has been built by community teams in the same way I think that you guys did with Helium. There's so much talent and skill within our ecosystem, and they are all experienced operators. They have been integral not just in terms of social amplification, which is where I think a lot of projects often think about community, but actually also in core technical contribution.
Thank you, guys. I think community is such an essential part about what everybody here is doing, right? Like the community is building the supply. A lot of times the community is also the demand side and everything. I think one thing that I like to do in this panel is something that I'm very passionate about is like onboarding new people into crypto. I would like to ask, like, outside of the technical side, how do you guys think that DePIN projects can compete with the Web 2 world, right? Because I think that's a big thing. Like me as a supply side, why would I choose you guys instead of using AWS or like another RPC provider, for example, right? Maybe like Adrienne can start.
Yeah, sure. So I think first and foremost, like nobody chooses you because you're decentralized. You have to be at least as good as the incumbents in order to win the business. So for us, the key thing is better uptime, better resilience in the face of spikes in demand, and lower cost. Actually, a lot of the DePIN projects that are in our circle at that kind of infra side, they're able to outcompete on cost. They're able to outcompete on resilience, and they're able to outcompete in scalability.
Thank you. And for Thomas, I think your project can onboard a lot of people into crypto as well, right? Because of it's so easy to onboard, like install an app and start using it already immediately. How do you guys, first of all, solve the challenges of the quality of audio that you're trying to measure? And what is the advantage that you see from new users coming to this ecosystem through Silencio?
I mean, when it comes to the quality of the data that we're collecting, we're putting various mechanisms in place. I mean, from controlling your speed to actually knowing if your phone is unlocked or not, what way you're holding your phone. I mean, this is all information that helps us create a better data set. We're also working with multiple PhDs to really improve our code when it comes to the measuring of DBA values. But at the same time, Silencio is striving for a bigger vision. And we were just talking about that before. We see noise level data as our entry door to a much bigger vision, ideally becoming kind of like the Amazon for smartphone generated data. We're starting with books, which is for us our noise level data products. These are impact driven. It's something novel. It's a story we can all talk about and really help create a better tomorrow for everybody, while at the same time enable the capabilities for people to participate passively. And before I was mentioning the frictionless part of the story. It's very important that if you want to design a game, an app, or anything, you can actually use gamification to get, to faster growth. But the only problem that you're going to encounter sooner or later is that it can only bring you so far. You can decide the best, game in the world, but sooner or later people are going to find something more shiny or the next big thing to play with. And that's why it's important that you have people onboarded in such a way that that value can be kept on, being delivered, so that you can create the vision that you are implying to do so.
Yeah, I like the idea of focusing also on the passive, things that you don't need to actually do every day, because everyone has the shiny object syndrome, right? As a developer, I see people like JavaScript developers, every week they're trying a different framework. You start working something, you have it done like 50%, and then you jump to something that's more exciting or new, or something that you want to learn. For Al, one question, I really like the analogy with LimeWire. I think a lot of people here started with torrents, just to download, Linux distros, obviously. I see a lot of decentralized computing, decentralized storage, centralized hardware, that it's almost becoming a crowded ecosystem for that part. How does Koii try to differentiate yourselves from the noise, basically, right? Because I really like what you guys are doing. I'd like to hear from you.
Yeah, so what we're focused on mostly is around subjective and localized economics. So what this means is when I want to do business with the community, I issue my own token. I don't buy Filecoin to pay for storage. I issue my own token, and then I recruit people who believe in what I'm doing so that they will actually store files for me. And this kind of economics works really well if you have a large enough community that already has reputation. It doesn't work otherwise, because you can't just trust new people who are coming in off the street because you don't know them, and it can create a Sybil attack problem. But the replication thing the reputation rather leads to this replication problem, which is actually how we get back to the Web 2 compatibility. In Web 2, you trust one person to store your file. And you give them the file, and you pay them with a credit card. And it's very simple. And so if we ever want to get to that with Web 3, it's actually very difficult to compete. You get the cost economics of having all this consumer hardware, because you get a little bit of a discount there. It's usually already paid for. It already has an internet connection. But what you're missing is that you usually have to do the work more than once, because you have to actually verify that someone's storing the file, or you have to have multiple replications. And so with reputation and this kind of community of nodes that we've been building, you now get the ability to actually trust somebody more. And so instead of your replication factor being 2 to 5x, which is what it is if you do a ZK proof, or if you're doing something like most computing networks at the moment, you actually have to have multiple people do the work before you can verify that it's done properly. So most of those things are actually 5 times or 2 to 5 times more expensive than Web 2. Which is pretty much impossible for us to compete. And so by building a really strong community for all of these different task applications, we're able to bring down the replication factor by using reputation. And so we find somebody that can do that job right away for my new token out of the box. And so I can walk in, create a token, pay somebody, and as long as they hear my story and want to mine my new token, then they'll do the job for me. Which means my cost of entry is 0 for most new applications. And that's why we want to get back to this truly peer-to-peer intranet. Because if you can imagine the LimeWire use case, I want to publish my new album, I want people to distribute it for me. So now I want everybody to issue this thing, but I can't go and buy something, because now there's a cost of entry. So we want to get the cost of entry to 0 for most applications.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I think it's a very, very interesting way of looking at those things, right? Comparing just S3 alternative, basically, for storing files. So you guys are building, what is it called? The DePIN coordination layer, DCL. How did you guys come to this idea? Because you guys are building infrastructure for all the DePIN projects to solve specific challenges, right? How did you guys come to this idea? And what was the main complexity that you guys are solving with it?
So when we started around 3 years ago, the way we saw the DePIN landscape was the way was kind of similar to the pre-Ethereum era of blockchains, where each DePIN was trying to solve one specific problem, and completely solving the vertical, which is gathering demand, gathering supply, and solving all the technical problems. Now, the value of a trustless platform like a blockchain is that multiple folks can come together and build applications on top to do each of these individual tasks. in traditional blockchain, it's referred to as like the modular platform, right? So in case of DePINs, if you want to gather enough, you can gather supply through tokenomics. But if you want to gather enough demand, you need other people to build apps on top. Maybe these apps combine multiple DePINs together to provide one type of service, or maybe they use properties from one DePIN, let's say community or reputation, to apply incentives on the other DePIN. Right? And to do all of these coordination, you need, this coordination happens for Ethereum, right? Like Uniswap can trust Aave, and Aave can trust Tether or some other token deployer. Because there is trust in digital state. To build a similar level of coordination economics across physical infrastructure, you needed trust in physical state. And that's why we started working on this problem. And we have, to give a few concrete examples of what you can achieve through this, right? So in a typical, if you ignore DePINs, take traditional physical infrastructure networks, they can get financing by using their existing infrastructure as a collateral and get a loan. That cannot be done in DePINs because nobody can build a borrow lending protocol if they can't trust that a DePIN's asset is a real asset. Right? If you want to trust that, you need trust in its attributes. But once you trust that, you can use an existing, let's say, a Helium node to borrow and deploy a Filecoin node or a Silencio node, and so on. And we wanted to enable that whole economy, and that's how we started.
That's really cool. Okay, we have 4 more minutes. I have a quick, interesting question that I want to hear ideas, maybe just one of you. What do you guys think about the crypto regulation aspect of things, right? Because a lot of times we're working, everybody like, okay, I hate KYC, this is the end of the world, I'm in crypto, these things shouldn't exist. But I do believe that for crypto to become mainstream and to be looked by the governments and for everyone actually to be this valuable asset, how do you guys see that DePIN has a role to play in this? And what do you think the major challenges for getting that? I don't know if any one of you want to take the challenge of the answering that.
I can try for this one first. So cryptography used to be illegal, which people don't really realize. We're not allowed to encrypt data to another person. But then it became commercially necessary as the internet developed further. And so as something becomes commercially necessary, then regulators have to step in to do something. And there's something very specific that most of the regulators are interested in right now. We spent this week in London a couple weeks ago running a hackathon. We're also very close with the Digital Commonwealth group there. So we had people from the House of Lords and a lot of British politicians that were actually in the room. And a lot of what they're talking about right now is preventing people from pump and dumping. And that's actually the most important thing to most of these people. It's not about trying to slow down crypto. The antagonism that was there 5 years ago, it really isn't there anymore. Most people are actually looking for ways to leverage crypto or to actually take advantage of this new market because the banking system is not doing that well. There's not as much money in the stock market as there was previously. And so they're looking at this as an opportunity, but they don't want people to take advantage of retail users. And so the thing that's fascinating about that is if you actually have a really good DePIN network, it actually is valuable from day one. And you launch something, and you recruit people with devices, and you issue a token to people who are providing a service to you, which is valuable to another person. And so the token always has value in that system. And it's just about how much demand there is for it that scales the value up and down, which is extremely different from what was happening in 2017 when we had no actual supply of anything, and everybody was launching tokens that had no value, that didn't even have any tech behind them. So we're in a very, very different place now. And the only thing that's going to really accelerate this is templates. Templates and standards. If we get to the point where you can launch something like WordPress that's actually a DePIN application and there's a network of people out there that can run it, then you're building something right away with value. And that, you don't need to regulate that. That works right out of the box.
I would actually, amazing answer. I would actually add to that also the factor of tax regulation worldwide. I mean,
They don't like that.
no, because DePINs, I mean, at the end of the day, we can scale 10 to 100 times faster than any Web 2 approach. But at the same time, if you want to be compliant in your local countries, I mean, you can deploy super fast. The question is, do we have clear rules to play the game in every single country? And the answer today is no. I mean, I made my own share of negative experiences with that, living in Germany, which is a nightmare for that. But I guess we also need to find templates for that in the future for crypto to be able to scale at the potential it can scale.
I'd like to add that one thing that will help regulation significantly is if your protocol is decentralized. Bitcoin led that example. And if you build DePIN platforms in a completely trustless manner, I think that will push regulator acceptance throughout the globe.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to say something. I mean, you don't have to.
I don't have a particularly strong view. I was told by someone that works in regulation that they think that DePIN is a really great use case for crypto because it is much easier on the regulators, like people can understand it, the utility is clearer. So in that regard, it could be a way to help improve perception of crypto outside of the bubble that we all occupy.
No, yeah, that's absolutely. I think there's this whole thing with so a lot of governments or like I like to say suits. They don't really like crypto because they see this as a Ponzi schemes, the gambling, people are stealing people's money. And actually, when you start talking about what we're building with DePIN, it completely changes the whole perspective that they have. It's very easy to see the value that DePIN projects are adding to society. And it's something that people, when they're working with the regulators, they can start using DePIN as much more than they were doing before instead of talking about DeFi, etc. But yeah, I think it's inevitable. And we just need to learn how to work with it. And hopefully the governments are going to move as fast as we are, right? Well, we are running out of time. I would like to thank you guys for this panel. I think it was super interesting. Thanks, everyone, for listening. And I think I need to get ready for the next one.
Thank you for the great questions.
Thank you.
You.